Hello from Zeros, my name is Bogdan, you're on channel Smart Zeros, and today I tell you
about Nokia N-Gage QD.
Thank you, you heard him. So let's get Time Machine started. Time is like a river that has turned into ice. With these crystal palaces we will build a new world. Smart Zeros is a space where we rule the time, rather than the other way around. Zeros has no past, they simply move to Smart Zeros. Our today's hero began to be developed even before the official release of the classic N-Gage, as some of the defects of the latter became apparent even at the stage of its creation. The main ones among them were, first of all, the inconvenience of the device as a means of communication. Although it's close to perfection as a gaming console, but still remains a phone. Secondly, no swapping memory cards. It's one thing now to buy a volumetric MMC card for Gaga, fill it with the right applications and forget all about it. Quite another thing to buy as before each game on a separate cartridge and change it to another. Thirdly, it's expensive. The main competitor to N-Gage at the start of sales was Nintendo Game Boy Advance, which was almost 3 times cheaper. It's ironic that today, thanks to emulators, you can easily play games for this platform on our smartphone. But Nokia had no time to fix these nuances because there was already a planned date for the start of sales. And so for some time the work went in parallel on both devices. Nokia N-Gage QD was released in early 2004, that is, 6 months after classic Gaga. People began to call this model CUDA in Ukraine, or Gaga QD. However, many people do not divide these game consoles on fundamentally different devices, so when mentioning the terms N-Gage and Gaga may mean both smartphones. Well, let's figure out what the difference is between these devices. Form factor QD inherited from the classic Nokia N-Gage. The latter in turn borrowed from Nokia 5510 and 3320. However, the appearance of the devices is still far from identical. QD's body is 2mm coarser, but the front part is noticeably more compact. This allows the device to lie down more comfortably in the hand. The confirmation button is separate from the joystick and the number keys are placed in the lapping to each other. Also, the answer reset buttons has been moved from the top to the bottom. But there were also some flaws. Since Nokia consciously took a course on cheaping QD compared to the classic N-Gage, the Finns thought it would save the product on the market. It had to include lower quality materials for the case. In some fundamental ways they don't differ, but sometimes you have to clean the joystick. Also, some device owners complain that the rubber band around the perimeter of the device falls off over time. In its place lives a slot which can be easily closed with any other rubber band of similar size. Enthusiasts even create interesting handmade products for this function.
The key to success is visibility.
Theoretically, the Nokia N-Gage QD has the same iron as its colleague, a Symbian 6.1, 4 MB of memory built-in and 16 R 104 MHz processor, MMC or RS-MMC card slot, 176 to 208 pixels TFT screen with 4096 colors transferred, and then again no camera. But there are slight differences in fact. First, after starting the free RAM, device QD has half a megabyte less, 10.5. Second, there is a hot swappable memory card. Now you don't have to turn off your smartphone and remove the battery to get to the MMC slot. Third, the maximum brightness of the screen is higher. And fourth, the processor can't be overclocked for a very simple reason. Z-G, the creator of the program for this very process, didn't have a Nokia N-Gage QD, but only a classic Gaga. There are practically no differences in terms of gameplay between devices. Except, as I said, the keyboard became different, and thanks to this decision it became even more convenient to play, according to QD owners. Of course, we can also mention the built-in N-Gage Arena, for which the device has a separate G drive. But since it has already been closed, this difference is not so important anymore. Anyway, it's still the same huge opportunities. The exclusive game World of N-Gage, SIS format, first edition applications for Symbian Series 60, Java platform, and of course emulators of Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Mega Drive, ZX Spectrum, Nintendo Game Boy Advance, WAD, its 19th computer games, and others. This must be where Nokia came in for the most radical changes. Firstly, the headphone jack. Here we already use one 2.5mm 4-pin slot, which was the standard for the devices of the time. Secondly, the standard Nokia N-Gage QD lacks amper-free hardware support. In turn, there is no built-in player to play it, nor a separate chip that made the sound of its predecessor simply incredible for its time. However, the problem is solved by installing additional codecs and a separate player. I recommend SG Jukebox version 2.30. This is the latest version of one of the best players for Symbian, which both N-Gage support. If you take the device specially for games, then you have nothing to worry about. All sounds and music in them will be played in the traditional mode. As for N-Gage games, as well as SIS, Java, emulators, etc. It's also worth mentioning that the phone's menu has been transformed from standard for all 3rd generation Series 60 smartphones to exclusive coloring where black and orange colors prevail. It will not be possible to call the owner or QD a side talker anymore, because the conversation speaker has moved from the side panel to the front. Besides, there is no mini USB in the device. All the other parameters are the same. With Bluetooth you can sync your device to computer, play games together with friends and share files. And with WAP GPRS technology you can access the World Wide Web. QD's Nylon battery capacity is slightly higher and you can play it for a couple of tens of minutes longer, but in general there is no principal difference. Nokia N-Gage QD came out quite successful model which makes up for the errors that were allowed in the classic version. However, it should be said that the developers have also sacrificed several factors, which for some customers may be decisive in terms of choosing between these two smartphones. These are multimedia functions and case materials. If the first one is not so important for gamers, the second need to clean the joystick and the dubious quality of rubber around the perimeter of the device is unlikely to go unnoticed. But in general, QD has its impressive advantages, thanks to which can argue with Nokia N-Gage for the title of the best game console. And that's it for today, friends. I'll see you in new materials.